In today's show, we're talking about how to manage access to your Power Apps from within inside your Power App. That's right, we're going to talk a little bit about some cool stuff using the Office 365 Groups connector to manage Azure Security Groups. Weird, I know, but we're going to do some really interesting stuff that came up with the other day. Should be fun. But first, here's our intro. Hi, my name is Shane Young with PowerApps 911. Those guys. And today, we're going to manage access in your Power Apps. And most importantly, no special permissions required, right? I realized a long time ago I could do this if I was me, in my global admin super rights. But I realize most of you are not global admins. Most of you don't even know anyone in IT or know what a global admin is. No big deal. We're going to talk about how you can create your own Azure Security Group and then manage it directly inside Power Apps to control who has access to your app from in your app instead of having to go and manage it in a bunch of places. It's kind of crazy, but once it's not complicated. I pieced a bunch of little things together to kind of make a fun little solution here. So that's enough of the blah, blah, blah. Let's switch over to my desktop and take a look. Okay, so over here on my desktop, you can see that there's not much to this app, right? We're just going to be able to go in here and be like, oh, I want to get Ferguson out. I can delete Ferguson out of there. And after a second, Ferguson is gone. But I can also go over here and search for users. So we'll find Ferguson again. We'll search for cat. And when we search for cat, we can add user. And then bammo whammo, Ferguson the cat is been added. And so what we're going to do here is we're going to take advantage of the fact that you probably already knew this. But if we go over here to make.powerapps.com, when we have an app and we want to share the app, so I have an app called Chewy's Groups, and when we want to share the app, one of the things that we can do is we can share it with security groups, right? So you can't share it with SharePoint groups, you can't share it with Office groups, but if you have an Azure Security Group, you can share it with a group, and then anyone that gets added to that security group, they have access. But Shane, I can't do that. But it turns out that you can. And so that's why you might notice I'm logged in as Chewy here, right? So in our environment, Chewy has no special permissions. Chewy is a regular user with a regular license. We've never done anything special for the dog because he's too lazy to do any work, so I want to give him permissions, right? So to that end, I wanted to show you how Chewy can do all of this for himself so that he can not only create the group, but then add the people into the group. Also keep in mind that towards the end, we'll talk about we'll log back in as me, and I'll show you a couple of troubleshooting things if this is not working in your environment. But for most of you, unless you're AD or, administrators have changed a bunch of stuff, this should all just work. So the first piece of this puzzle is we need to go over to myapplications.microsoft.com. I had never heard of this website before, I'll be honest. But as I was trying to figure out how to do it as Chewy, I tripped over this and I found, all right, well, this looks like, a bunch of Office stuff. We're kind of used to that. But up here in the top corner, where it says My Apps, if we hit the drop down, there is My Groups. After a few seconds, it loads me up into some Active Directory location. I don't know. Don't care. It brought me over here, and you can see that there are groups I own. Remember, logged in as Chewy, and then groups I am in. And so the idea here is this lets people do some self-service group management, assuming that they're allowed to do the self-service group management. And most of these things just work by default, right? So if you guys rolled out Office 365, this is all working unless someone went and turned it off, which probably isn't the case. So over here, I'm like, that's pretty cool. So I went over, remember, logged in as Chewy and said create a group. And so the group type here has to be security, okay? There's Microsoft 365 groups, sometimes Office 365 groups, what we used to call them. You can't share a Power App with a Microsoft 365 group, but you can share a Power App with a security group. So make sure the group type is security. Give it a name, and we'll call it Chewy Video Demo. I could give it a description. I probably should. I'm not going to. And then I can also set the policy. The group, anyone can join it, or only the owners of this group can add members. And that's what I want, right? Because I'm going to use this to secure access to my Power App. So I want to make sure that only owners, aka this guy, can add, or well, I guess Chewy, not me, but you know what I mean. Only the owners can add members. So we're going to say create. It was successfully created. And so it doesn't refresh the screen. If we hit refresh, we might have to wait a second. So take 1 sec. And so there you go. After about 15 seconds, it showed up. I have read that sometimes some of this group management stuff can take about 5 minutes to propagate around. So don't give up that you did it wrong until you've waited 5 minutes. But thus far for me, it's been somewhere between 15 and 20 seconds. So there's a Chewy video demo that we just made. Now I could go in here now and say, hey, awesome. I can edit the group. I can delete the group. I could add members. So we go here, hit the plus. And then we could add Ferguson. And so we could add Ferguson directly from here. We could also make Ferguson an owner. So if we wanted Ferguson to be able to help manage the permissions, we don't want that, but we could do that. But honestly, I've never used these screens before, so I don't want you living over here. I just need you to come over here long enough to create your security group, right? And so also keep in mind, if you go to do this and it doesn't work, remember you could reach out to IT and say, hey, will you create me a security group and make me the owner and get the same effect? So if your IT has blocked you from doing this, hopefully they haven't, but if they have, ask them to create you a security group and make you an owner, and then you can go forward from there yourself. Okay, one more thing I need from here before I leave though. If you look up here in the URL, you see a bunch of blah, 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 and then you're going to see the word object ID equals, right here. I need you to copy the GUID, aka the numbers and characters after it. So I'm going to start here with a 7.5, and I'm going to go all the way to the end of the line, and I'm going to hit Control C. This is the piece of the puzzle, or another one of the pieces of the puzzle that I've been missing for the last years. I've been trying to figure out how to give you guys this video, is how for you to get this numbers. You need these numbers. It's not really a number, it's a GUID, but you need that. So we're going to copy that, Control C. And now that we have the group created and we have the ID of the group, we're in business. So let's go back over to Power App. So over here in the Power App, you can see, right, we had the little management interface. You guys want to see the app? Oh, we'll just kind of close out of this. We'll go back over here. So the whole idea of the app here was that Chewy wants to create an app to share with Ferguson, app to appreciate him, and his hijinks as a baby, riding in the car, his favorite thing to do, eating spaghetti, which he gets so excited on spaghetti night, and I have no understanding. I guess that's how you get to weigh 110 pounds. Anyway, the app's not important. What's really important is our interfaces over here for managing things. Oh, and I made this button mad. Yeah. Tell it to be quiet. Sorry, let's get rid of that. Put that back. Okay, don't worry about that. That wasn't important. Okay, so in the app, now that we have that ID, let's just create a new screen and do this. New screen, blank. The first thing I want to do, anytime that I've got a big clunky thing like that I need to carry around, it is just easiest to put it into a variable. So I'm going to call it var new group, and then I'm just going to, it's a string, I'm going to wrap it just like that. So doing this will keep us from having to type and remember this all the time. And the nice thing is that if this ever changed, which it shouldn't, I mean, it wouldn't, but if you wanted to change the group that this was involved with, you just change the variable. Okay, so now we've done that. So that's in the variable. Now what I want you to do is go over here and I want you to add the Office 365 groups connector to your app, right? So add data, search, Office 365, groups, right? We're adding the groups connector. Now, weirdly enough, when we add the groups connector, we can manage security groups. It makes no sense why that works, but it does. But so now that we've added the groups connector, I'm going to get rid of my extra one. Now that we have the connector in there, what I want you to do first off is I want you to add a gallery. Well, we'll start there. Then we add a gallery, a little vertical gallery here. And we're going to set the items property for this gallery to be Office 365 groups. And then dot list group members. And then for the group ID, we're going to use that variable that we just did, right? Var new group. Once again, just cutting down on our code that we have to write. Now this particular connector returns a record. So what I need you to do is go to the end and do a dot value. So that then makes it return a table. And you can see that our group just has one person in it, right? So the gallery is just a nice way to see the table of data, which is the people in our group. There's its display name, the given name, all the different little information is there. Okay, so there's our group. We could make it look nicer. We're not going to worry about that right now. So then now, how do we add to the group? Okay, so now that we've got a group, yay, we want to add to the group. We're going to have another button over here. And we're going to say, all right, Mr. Button, I want to Office 365 groups, add member to group. Group ID. Well, once again, this is why we put it in a variable, var new group. User UPN, right? So this is a user's user principal name that needs to be added. Now, first off, let's just do it easy. And so I just know that cats is cat@powerapps911.com, right? That's Ferguson the cat. So that's all we need to do to put that in there. Yeah, so we're going to hard code the first one, right? We're trying to make this easy, and then we'll make it more cool, more dynamic in a second. So if I press the button, Ferguson should now be in the group. Now, this particular connector does not automatic refresh like your SharePoint, your Dataverse, your SQL connectors. So I was struggling with this. I invented a way to make this reset. So what I ended up doing, I'm just going to add another button so I keep everything separate, is I realized that if you set var new group, remember that's our variable, if you set it back to blank, then set it back to set var new group, and then our same little ID again. So basically just clear the variable out and then set it back to the value you want. That forces the gallery to reload. So if I just press this button, it reloads. So this is how you force this data source to refresh. I just figured that out like 30 minutes ago. So now you can see that Chewy and Ferguson are here. If you wanted to go back over here to this interface and do a refresh over here, where's the refresh button? Right there. Ta-da! Chewy and Ferguson are here. So we have a way to add people to our security group without using any special permission. Remember, I'm still logged in as Chewy, right? I'm not logged in as me, the special admin. I'm logged in as Chewy. So now that we can manage the group, let's use the group, right? Which is real simple. So if we just go back over to our Power App, right? So here's Chewy Groups, the app. You would just go to this interface. You would say share. And so then we'd say, all right, we want to use, what do you call it? Like Chewy demo video demo, Chewy video demo. And we would make that group a user. And so not a co-owner, right? We don't want them to have owner access, just user access. And so share. And so anyone that's in that security group now is able to access the app. And in this case, Ferguson is in the security group. And so if we send Ferguson the link to the app, right? Because a cat really wants an app of Chewy, Ferguson can open the app. Yay! Right? You can see I'm logged in as Ferguson over here. So isn't that kind of Chewy? He built this beautiful collage of himself and what a fast way to share it. Okay. So other interface things over here. So let's just go over to the built versions now and kind of talk a little bit about it. Hopefully though, mechanically you understand, right? It's not too crazy. Oh no, I got to show you one more mechanical thing, don't I? So here, this was just hard coding adding Ferguson. Well, obviously you don't want to just add Ferguson. So what you're going to want to do here is I went ahead and used the Office 365 users connector. And so then with that one, I said, give me a combo box. And then in the combo box, I did something like Office 365 users, and then search user, and then just open and close. So that way it gets all the users. And then because we've got a bunch of people here that I don't want in there, I end up filtering the data out. Say filter users where at PowerApps. 911.com is in the mail field. I do that. So then that should filter down my users. And then I'm going to say for the fields, I want to show their display name right here. We'll search on their display name. And so then now, there you go. We can do that. I need to make it is searchable. So we go right here and say is searchable is true. And so then now we could search and add me, right? So Shane, select me. There we go. So then now on the button, what I would do is I would change this hard coded from here to be combo box 2, which is the combo box dot selected dot user principal name, right? Because that's what it wants. It wants a user principal name. So that would add me. And then I'm going to grab this code where this is our code for resetting the gallery. I'll just copy that out and put that up here after this. And so then now if I press this, we should see me get added. There you go. I got added and it automatically refreshed that time. So there you go. So that's how those mechanics work. So now we can go look at the nicer version of the app. Oh, so tree view. So on this particular screen, Chewy's adorable. But one of the things I wanted down here, you notice I have an admin only button, but if I'm logged in as Ferguson, I don't see the admin only button. So you guys had asked before in the past, how do I hide things based on security groups? And so now that I understand it better, I can show you. So what I ended up doing here was I ended up saying var group ID. Okay, so this is a variable where I'm holding the real security group. And so what I'm doing is on app on start, I'm saying set var group ID, and this is the ID of Chewy's actual security group that we're using to manage the app. So not the one we just created, the one that I created to build the demo app. So that's my group. So I'm putting that into a variable. And right here, I'm saying, hey, if the ID is in this right here, list Office 365 groups, list own groups V2, V2. V3 shows different groups. V2 is the one that you want. But so if you hover over this little shenanigans now and do table, this is giving me the IDs of all of the groups that Chewy is an owner in, which this one right here is the main one that is in my variable, right? So it ends in BFF. I didn't do it on purpose. This one ends in BFF. So that's why it's fine. So it's checking to see, is the group that we're looking for, is Chewy listed as an owner of that group? If he is, we show him the admin only button because then he can add users and delete users from that group. If he's not, which Ferguson is not, that's why Ferguson, no button here. Okay. So that works for that. We can hit play here. We click on admin only. So over here, we had the interface for finding people. So if we find like me, and then I actually have this one set up to find multiples. So we can do me, and then we could do, we'll do Daniel. So Daniel helped me with the app. So we'll give Daniel in here. So I've got me and Daniel added right here. And so then what we're going to do in the add user button, we're going to do a couple things. We're going to show a spinner, right? So that way while it's processing, they just have to wait. And then I'm going to, for all, I'm going to loop through the combo box one selected items. So all the records, so there's two rows, right? One for me, one for Daniel. So we're going to go through both of those. And we're just going to add each of us to the group. So add me, get done, add Daniel, done. Then we're going to do our little trick for resetting the variable. Remember, this is the idea that I want to be able to whoosh it around so that the gallery resets. I'm going to reset the combo box so me and Daniel's names are removed and then close the spinner. So let's try that. So add the user, there's the spinner, ta-da! There is Daniel and I. And so now Daniel and I have access to Chewy's app. We can't administer it, right? We're not owners of Chewy's app. We're just regular old people. And we could, of course, confirm that by refreshing this if you don't trust me. Now, this is good. I hit refresh. You notice only I show up. Remember, I told you, I've read it can take up to 5 minutes for these types of changes to propagate. So right now, Daniel couldn't get in, right? But in like 3 minutes or 2 minutes or 1 minute, Daniel will be able to get in. Like if we hit refresh again, Daniel's still not shown up, right? So I read up to 5 minutes. So far, it has not let me down and not worked. But this is a good way to confirm if you're like, not sure. The fact that he shows up over here tells me that he's in the group, right? Because this is also querying the group. So we'll look at that code in just a second. But this, for whatever reason, this thing hasn't updated. But it's okay. If it doesn't update after 5 minutes, then you can go looking harder. But the fact that Daniel shows up here is good. So that's adding. And so speaking of that, the code for this, what I'm doing here is I'm saying items I want to, so I'm doing the list group members value, right? Which we showed in the very beginning of the demo. Now you notice here I'm doing an if not is blank var group ID. So PowerApps, being the special little friend that it can be, it has a tendency when you use the Office 365 connectors to throw error messages that it can't find something because the thing didn't load fast enough. So basically everywhere that I'm doing something like list group members in the real app, I had to go in and put in this code because Chewy building the app didn't have any error messages pop up. But as soon as I gave access to Ferguson, Ferguson would see an error message, and then that fast, he would see the list of users like he was supposed to. And it was just driving me crazy that we were basically getting bogus error messages. So blocking them out like this, just basically confirming it's not blank before you check, gets rid of all those error messages. Okay, so then that does that. If we go over here, I have a delete button. I meant to make a delete pop-up, I forgot. But here we're using Office 365 groups, remove member from group. Right, here's our group. Oh, you know what? We could have just used our var group ID. And then what we did was we did our little thing again, right? We blanked out the variable, we set the variable back, and that is what forces it to refresh when we delete a person out. And then the other piece of this here was, I did this. I don't like what I did here. But so in my gallery, I wanted to show pictures, so it was a nicer demo for you guys. So I'm using the Office 365 users user photo. Remember that this is making a bunch of extra calls. Like, so for every record, so we only have 4, but I made 4 calls to that API to get the data. So if you had a large group, this could be really expensive. Like, so it means slow and waste a bunch of API calls. So you probably don't want to do their images like this. You're welcome to, but remember you don't really want to do this type of thing inside of a gallery because that lookup is expensive. And notice here, I also did the whole is not as blank thing again, because once again, first time I get Ferguson was seeing all these stupid error messages that because the variables hadn't loaded yet, but then the variables loaded and it showed Ferguson the data, but the error messages persisted. So I just do this type of stuff when I use that connector. So another little trick there. Let's go back over here real quick and do a refresh. Man, Daniel's just not coming, right? But we know Daniel's in the group. Oh, you know what? No, Daniel's. Oh, I'm kind of looking at the wrong group. Duh. It's hard being me. Go back, right? Chewy Security Group is the group I just added me and Daniel to. There we are. What do you do? Sometimes you make mistakes. And I found that you guys prefer I leave them in videos because you like to know that I screw up all the time too. So there you go. I was looking in the wrong security group, right? There's BFF, right? See my little BFF up there? Yep. It's kind of funny. It was BFF. Okay. So that is how you make an app to manage this stuff. Is how you query Office 365 groups. But more importantly, remember that weirdly enough, right? We don't have an explanation for it. But Office 365 Groups connector works with security groups. Right? I don't know why it does, but that's important because we can't use Office 365 Groups, also called Microsoft 365 Groups. We can't use those groups for security management and PowerApps, but we can use security groups and we can use that connector to manage them. Okay. So I think that's everything for the app, right? Other than let's just all take another moment, look at Chewy. Oh. So what I want to do here for the last couple seconds is we're going to switch over to Browser as Me and just talk about a couple of the settings that you guys can look at if you're an admin, right? Or maybe your user just watched the video and now they're like, hey, Mr. Admin, use Shane's troubleshooting tips. So I'm going to just show you a couple of the settings that really come into play here. All right, so let me switch over to my browser. One second. Okay, so this is a browser logged in as me, right? You can see my pretty face over there. So you know that it's me. And so because I am a global admin, right, I can show you those admin-y settings. So here we go to admin. So the first thing that we're worth noting, right, if we go to groups and then active groups, and then we choose the security tab over here, you're going to see that we've got all of my different groups, right? And so there's groups that we just did. Chewy video demo, it shows up here. Chewy security group show up here, right? This is where the groups have to get created in order for them to use it, because it has to be a security group, not a Microsoft 365 group. I can't stress this enough. Someone's going to leave a comment and be like, my Microsoft 365 group's not working. I'm going to be like, psh. Anyway, so has to be a security group. Now, if you're finding that your users can't do the admin access panel stuff that I did, what we found out is if we go over here to show all, and then we go down here to Azure Active Directory. And so over here, what I want you to do is click on Azure Active Directory, and then I want you to go to groups. Now, when you're in here as groups, what you're going to see is that you have general settings. And so this is the screen. So all the settings you see here, these are defaults. I've never touched any of them, but you can see that users can create security groups in Azure Portals, API, or PowerShell. Yes, this is the setting that allowed my users to go over here to this little, my apps, and then click on my groups and then create their own groups, right? So that setting, where'd it go? So this is the setting that needs to be yes if you want your users to be able to manage it. I didn't have to do anything. This was all just working in my world, but I just kind of went and poked the bear a little bit, and it looks like some people do turn this off. And so if you have this turned off, your users can't do it. If your users can't do it themselves, then you're going to need to go create them the security group, make them an owner of the security group, and then they can do everything that you just saw in the video. So other than that, right, I'm not an Azure AD expert. I don't play one on TV. I did not stay at Holiday Inn Express last night. This is just what I have found from kind of poking around. So hopefully it gives you guys some things to think about if you're having problems getting it working, because I know that sometimes we kind of venture outside the PowerApps world into this Azure AD security stuff. We got to, sometimes help each other figure out some of this. So that's everything I've got for today. If you want to download this working app, right, you can just go out to training.poweraapps911.com and sign up for the curated library. You can download this and all my other working demo apps that I've built and take advantage of it. I've also got some live training classes coming up in August. August is like a couple days. No, the August one's sold out. So in September, there are some training classes with me. There's an app builders class. There's a SharePoint and PowerApps class, and there's a Power BI class. So 3 live training classes coming in September. So go check those out. Other than that, if you have questions, comments, ideas of how we could apply this differently, because we're kind of excited, or at least I'm excited about all this, leave them below. Always check those out, and I'm always interested in what you guys are up to. So with that, I'm going to say thanks and have a great day. Before you go, be sure to click on the subscribe button over here so that way you'll be notified when new videos come out. If you need any help or you want to work together, whether your problem is big or small, check us out at PowerApps 911. We do it all. I rhymed. Or if you're looking for more formal training offerings, we have those linked up here somewhere. So check them out. Thanks and have a great day.